Learning should be fun, but learning will be fun for children only if they are given a choice.
The first assumption is that there is access to technology for all.
In order to relieve stress on children when it comes to the board exams, 10th or 12th, it is tweaked a bit.
We know what we have. We have a community, and what we learn in that community is important.
Happy morning. It's still morning, noon, to all the educators here. It's great to be a part of this very promising conclave that began with Mrs. Narayanan leapfrogging our imagination to a digital mall, and then Mrs. Nandita Das, and I think the best is yet to, there's going to be more. But to start, I cannot but appreciate the organizers for the theme of this conference. I think you said April 6th, that was the genesis. Raising Learners for India 2040. For its relevance, yes, but particularly for its timeliness. For a lot of us in schools, the years of the pandemic represent a learning boom and a digital transformation. An unprecedented year where we were all fast forwarded 10 years ahead into the future. We never planned it. Add to that the bold reformative recommendations of the NEP 2020 that promise to bring disruption into our education ecosystem. This is the month of July. This month marks the 2nd anniversary of the NEP. And last year on 29th July, the Prime Minister announced to the nation that the NEP would make our youth future ready. And we are talking about future readiness now. Further, the World Economic Forum's Education 4.0 initiative also is talking about altering the global learning infrastructure, even redefining what is high quality education, so as to prepare us for the 4th industrial revolution. From the first and the second, which was about standard models, we are moving towards the 4th industrial revolution. There is no denying that. And no wonder many of our school leaders are in the process of revisiting our vision mission statements so as to align it to the needs of 2040. I have been a part of a training very recently to recreate my vision mission so as to make it relevant for 2040. The ambit and expectations from school education are also changing, and so are the demographics. India will have the highest population of young people in the world over this decade, the largest population in the world which is available to become the workforce not only for India, but also for the world. And as globalization and rapid advancement in technology continue to transform civic spaces in the world of work, we have to accept that education systems have grown increasingly disconnected from the reality. There is a mismatch between the education that we provide and what the job market needs. We are preparing our learners for a future we don't know much about. We were just talking about it, for jobs that don't exist yet, to solve for new technologies that have not been invented yet. When you were talking in the morning about the Jetsons and all that, it just seemed like a dream. To solve societal problems that were currently unimaginable. And the World Economic Forum says that 65% of students in your schools in the primary will have completely new jobs in the future. So career shifts are becoming a way of life. Recent research says that in the future, every individual will have 5 to 15 careers in a lifetime. I'm in the same school for the last 26 years. But 5 to 15 careers in a lifetime. Change 30 plus jobs and will be doing more than one job at a time. I have a son-in-law who has 3 professions already. And this future has already begun. Needless to say, it is critical that we school leaders adapt our educational models to equip our children with the requisite skills. All may not agree upon this. It's controversial. Sneha already said that. But in my view, it calls for shifts in learning content to include both the technical and the human-centric skills. So our ability to define new models of education for the fourth industrial revolution and provide this high-quality education opportunities to our learners will definitely determine the future of our country. And this raises many questions. I know it does. How? So what should be these new paradigms of quality education? How should they look, these new models of education? What are the specific actions that can propel us to become the schools of the future? What are the challenges we school leaders are going to face while making this shift? Will schools even be able to show the agility and resilience to become the schools of the future? Or will Digital India have to learn outside of schools? These are some questions which we wish to address through the course of this next 1 hour or 55 minutes. And to answer them, the tough job goes to my 4 very distinguished and experienced panelists of school leaders and educators, all from different geographies, diverse. So I think diversity is going to be the order of this entire panel. And I have the privilege of introducing them to you. Mrs. Revathi Srinivasan, Director Education of Raymond Group of Singhania Schools, also Principal of Srimati Sulochana Devi Singhania School, Thane. Ms. Revathi brings to this conclave more than 3 decades of experience. She is a driver of innovations in pedagogy as also a champion for societal transformation. A leader with vision and drive, she has been pivotal in successful implementation of technology and mobile app-based lessons to bring about a positive change in the lives of students and parents. And this was something that excited me, and I would like to hear more about it. Our second panelist is Dr. Bhavanishankar Subramanian, Director, Strategy, Research and Innovation, Lalaji Memorial Omega International School, Chennai. And I'm told that school has Cambridge, IB, ICSE, CBSE, and he's basically a researcher at heart who has worked across organizations and engaged in academic research. He brings to this conclave his keen leadership capabilities, I already saw them, and strategic skills to seed, nurture, and manage this change continuum in education that we are talking about, absolutely the need of the hour. And I really look forward to hearing more from you, Dr. Bhavanishankar. Dr. Madhura Phadke is an educator and scientist and a teacher at heart. Dr. Phadke was the founder principal of 2 Pawar public schools and 2 junior colleges offering state board and international curriculum. And she is a published author in several national and international journals. Welcome to the panel. And the gentle, calm Ms. Suvina Shunglu is the principal of Sri Sri Academy, Kolkata, and the very accomplished and celebrated principal of Kolkata, which is, she heads Sri Sri Academy, a school par excellence from what I've heard about it from her. Ms. Suvina Shunglu has steered the school to great heights since its inception, and under her leadership, the school has been consistently ranked #1 in Kolkata. So ladies and gentlemen, right now on the stage, you have more than 100 years of experience. And let's put it to some good use now. So let's straight away go to the questions. The first question is from Ms. Revathi Srinivasan. So what percentage of children in your school, as per your estimate, there wouldn't be an exact number of course, do you think are learning outside of schools? And could you share some specific instances that indicate what kind of learning is this?
Thank you very much for the questions, and thank you all for being here this morning. I'm no expert. I'm only sharing my experiences in my own school currently. And I would like to just say, most of the time, we don't draw a distinction between learning and schooling. And I think it's time that we draw that difference. Learning is more important, and that's the final output that I see. And learning is a part of education. So we as teachers are learners, and that we should remember that first. Students are learners, and parents should also be learners. If they are not, make them learners. That's how I would like to see the whole school ecosystem. So to the question that what percentage of children are perhaps learning out of school, I'd like to say almost every child is learning out of school. Because learning is not just in the form of learning academics or preparing for an examination. To me, going to a mall and being able to decide that I like two things, which one to choose, is decision making, and it is a learning. Can I draw comparisons between the prices and the utility and then see the value proposition and then take a call? That's learning to me. When I go to the playground and I am on the swing for most part of the time and I realize that the child who's watching me waiting for me to get off the swing, am I sensitive to the need of that child? That's learning. So if I were to say what's learning outside classroom, I think 100% of our children learn outside classrooms. And when we are learning outside classrooms, it also means the digital education that we are in. And digital education is very different from online education. Online education is a part of digital world that we are in. So the digital world consists of all your videos, your audiobooks, perhaps podcasts, and a whole lot of media that you can use so that you gather some knowledge, some information. And is all information required? Not required. Morning we had a very interesting talk by Ms. Nandita Das, where she did mention that she doesn't have a television. To me, having a television or not having a television is less important, but are we able to give our children the wisdom to be able to scan between what they need and what they don't? And if we have done that, learning has happened, education has happened. So giving them that wisdom is very important, and that should be a part of our learning. I always see that children are very adaptive. They pick up things very fast. So during this course of the 2 years, of course, everybody went on to technology. But about 5 years back, I started something that I believed very strongly in, giving children experiences outside of home so that children start consciously viewing programs that they should view. For example, a Russian ballet or a drama, a theater, or even a virtual tour to the US, to maybe the Disneyland. Not everyone can afford a trip to the US and the Disneyland. Can I give them a virtual tour? And that was the purpose of my starting what I started as my EdTech, as a part of the school, extension of the school. And for which I needed studios, I needed the right kind of people, like people who are good sound recorders, people who can create music and the kind of music that children should be listening to. So when everything is pieced together, you bring it out together, learning does happen. How other ways can we make learning possible? When we are during the summer holidays, we are in the summer holidays, there is normally a summer slide, which means children are very lethargic. They get up around 12 o'clock, they skip a breakfast or eat a breakfast at 12, and everything goes very slow. And when they come back to school on the very first day, you can see that lethargy, the complacency. So can we activate them? Can we make them wanting to do something during the summer? So what do schools do? All of us do that. I'm not just talking about my school. We give them a summer project. Can the project be a thinking project? A project that will help children think, design. So we are talking about coding. What is coding? It's all about leading to very logical algorithms that will lead to some amount of creation of something new. So can we give them that component? So we keep talking about 21st century skills. 21st century skills, you can keep it aside. Just think about two skills that we need. Building skills and selling skills. Building is how do we create knowledge for which children should think. How do I find solutions to a problem that my state, my city, my town, my township where I live or my school is facing? So if I can come out with solutions, how do I sell that idea? It doesn't mean sell doesn't have to be equated with money. Selling can be how do I communicate that idea so that I get more people to collaborate with me to come across to do that project. Now when you come across with that, you'll have more people joining in, more ideas coming in, and a final solution is coming out. And that I think we call in terms called design thinking. It's about thinking just differently. And I think that's what we need to do in our schools and especially outside of school. How many of our children communicate with their parents? Communication is homework ho gaya? Have you finished your homework? How much marks did you get in your English test? That's communication. No, that's interrogation according to me. But parents are only talking about that. Are you having a test tomorrow? Are you preparing for that? Okay, how much have you got? 16 on 20. So how much did Amit get? How much did Riya get? That is what is discussed. So can we change that conversation a little and make it more exciting? We were talking about what learning should be. Learning should be fun, but learning will be fun for children only if they are given a choice. Can we give them choices whereby they can select projects that they can do? Something completely out of their school hours. And when you start giving them that, they won't come back to our classrooms and ask, how much marks am I going to get for this project I do? The day we start getting them to realize that everything cannot be equated with marks, I think we have done great learning. So for me, learning outside school is about a lot of digital learning. It is also about hands-on experiences. Very young children must have lots of experiences where even drawing a family tree will involve so many parents, grandparents, everyone involved, and you will have a lot of discussion happening at home. That's what is missing. And these 2 years of the pandemic has really made that gap little wider, because though everyone was together, staying in one house, the communication was not there. So we need to open communication lines, and that's what we can do. I think a lot of projects will lead to a spirit of inquiry among children, and they will start initiating a personalized learning. So when they have done a particular level of mathematics, for example, or any kind of subject that they are interested in, they will start exploring more, wanting to know more about it. A certain amount of self-paced learning steps in, self-learning comes in, and that will accelerate learning. We need to create a revolution of sorts in our education pattern, and that is everything cannot be confined in the school alone. So whatever we are doing as an app that we have with our children, we've created it ourselves, and it's absolutely in-house. So you can imagine the kind of excitement it creates, because all projects are there on it. They can try out the projects as per their choices and explore a whole lot of the world by themselves at their pace, at the comfort of their homes. So I think that to me is learning. It's not just about physics, chemistry and biology.
Thank you. Wonderful. And I think so the dimensions of learning are expanding. There's physical learning, there's virtual learning, there's formal learning, there's informal learning. And this leads to the next question, that students are engaging in new emerging technologies. This informal learning or virtual learning is by and large, it privileges the idea of learn anytime, learn from anywhere, wherever you are. But a natural apprehension that then arises is, if children are learning anywhere, anytime, because they have so many choices which the school may not have given them, then will schools become obsolete? If not, then what are those skills that will keep our learners anchored to the school? They will have to come to school for what skills?
So that's a very interesting question, and Dr. Revathi, the insights that you gave us in trying to define the spaces that are available for students. So, and in all its enormity, it's great. But I'm going to take a flip. I'm going to set my own objective realities to trying to understand what this digital India is. And in the contextual space, I would like to put a load on the technology that exists and the technology that is used. In order to shape the dialogues and the conversation with the audience, what I would like to do is to start making assumptions. The first assumption is that there is access to technology for all. The second assumption is that every household has internet and the technology that would support this digital India learning opportunity. The third is that there is a family of 5 and every single person in this family has access to technology. The fourth assumption is that every single user knows how to use the technology and sets the limits to use the technology. And another assumption is that every single user is absolutely safe. These are the assumptions that would definitely make schools obsolete, because all of this is possible, everything is available for people to do. So based on these assumptions, let us throw open certain other questions. So now let us go to this wonderful project that happened decades back. So I think the Hole in the Wall project. And over a period of time, so everybody rallied together and said that, hey, you need mediation. Hey, you need facilitation. Hey, you need watchful eyes in order that the open participation and the universality with which all of this is available was definitely taken through the joy of education, and every single student who got an access to this learned from it. You know that it wasn't true. You know that the senior students never came back to it. And in this exercise, the wonderful pictures that are shown never had many girls in it. So park that aside. So God bless the exercise. Now, I'm not going there. We will go back to the schools. Now, if none of this is controlled, none of this is monitored, you know that, say, as pointed out by Dr. Revathi, see, how do I cull this information? How do I discriminate the good from the bad? How do I know to sieve into the depths of technology to understand and use technology? So where does the school come in all of this? Let us say universal access. I'm sure schools provide that to every single student within the school. So if you talk about participation, every single child in the school has a possibility to participate. Whether they are able to mediate or facilitate this learning through a regulated use of technology or the digital resources, yes, they are able to do that. Now, the schools control social loafing. The schools are able to regulate how the digital content is. In top of it, the overvalued relevance to one dimension, which is the intellectual cognition leading to marks, or the scholastic elements, park it on one side, and you have the rest of the developmental dimensions, the social dimension, the physical dimension, and the emotional dimension. I'm sure all of this is possible without school. Okay, so the parents can handle it. So you know what happened these last 2 years, and you see the fallout of it. Schools are relevant, and even more so because it's not about what the children do outside of the schools, it's what the school does to the children in trying to alleviate all these damages the digital India has done without much of control outside of this environment. And the long and short of it, I say that schools are even more relevant now than ever.
Wonderful. I think something to pat our backs. Whenever we talk about redefining, this question is to you, Dr. Phadke. Whenever we talk about redefining education, one cannot but make a reference to the NEP 2020. The NEP 2020 suggests very bold steps to rethink and reconfigure our education ecosystem. Like I said, the Prime Minister spoke about it. So I'd just like to broaden the scope of our discussion and ask you to talk about some of the specific recommendations of the NEP that you think are designed to prepare learners for 2040.
Thank you so much am I audible?
Yes.
So a very good morning to everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. It is said that you can't build a plane while you are on it. So a big thank you to Mrs. Asha Narayan and Karadi Path that we've already started building it when we are going to be on it in 2040 because that is where our workforce is going to be, our children who are there in the school. So congratulations and thank you so much for building, thinking ahead of time, that is what I would say. And that is what government has also done when we look at NEP 2020. The policy, why was it needed? A little bit of it, we have to look at it. The previous policies were also good. Everything cannot be bad. So there is good and bad, or there are things which are relevant today also from those policies. And there are certain things which we need to adapt to, or we need to change, or we need to rethink about. And therefore, there was a need for a new policy because the previous ones were based on colonial things. And so therefore, there was always a choice between quality and quantity. And unfortunately, we were headed towards quantity and not quality. And therefore, there was a need for this policy. Now, when we talk about, as my co-panelists have already set the tone for our discussion, or as we were discussing the other day that let there be some spice, let us fight on the stage as panelists, they have really set the tone. So when we talk about learning, it's from the time the child is born till we are talking about becoming a workforce in 2040. So all this while learning is going to happen. So what has NEP done to the students or to the schools or to the teachers? I feel all this learning phase of life, the phase which is kind of little controlled or organized, those have been brought together. Starting from your Anganwadis, Balwadis or pre-primary schools as we call it, to the higher education sector or post-graduation. So pre-primaries used to be in isolation, they used to work in isolation and there was no connect. So now the connect has been established. We have also realized that a particular school, why the parents are going to a particular school, maybe along with curricular activities, there are co-curricular activities which are happening, which are very good for the all-round development of a child. So, and that is the reason children are traveling 20 kilometers, 15 kilometers to reach a particular school, because all-round development is happening. But NEP has also brought in a concept called collaborative learning, where a particular school has a good sports teacher or a music teacher or an art teacher. All the children in that area can benefit from that teacher. So there is collaborative learning that is happening. So what has NEP done to children? If we have to really just put in some highlights in place. So first of all, Anganwadis, pre-primary education, Balwadis, there the learning is not happening in isolation. There's a connect established between primary schools and pre-primary schools. That's the first thing for a child when a child enters the school. Second is a lot of collaborative learning that is going to happen for children. There is going to be an option to even have technical education in your mother tongue. So that is another option that has been given. Multilingual approach to education. at least primary education in mother tongue has to be made available. So that's another benefit for the students for learning of the concepts really well. And then there is a la carte of subjects. Liberal arts is gaining a lot of importance. And so I will be able to choose. I might like 2 sciences and from pure sciences, and I might like business studies or economics. Now that choice is available. In order to relieve stress on children when it comes to the board exams, 10th or 12th, it is tweaked a bit so that they get twice in a year they get an opportunity to appear. It is more or less like the A-levels or the international curriculum where you get an opportunity to appear as many times as you want, so you can do that. So I think that will actually relieve children of this burden of schools and tuition classes. Then there is also something called as taking up the studies, so last minute studies that are happening. So all that children would be relieved, so there will be fun in learning. 360 degrees report card where what your peers feel about you is also part of NEP, and that is also going to help children. And more than anything else, I feel that failure is also okay. So I might be doing very well in one of the subjects and I may not be so good at something. That whole feeling of it's okay to fail. I think if we take NEP in its true letter and spirit, that is where we are leading to. Of course, all these things when I say, they are idealistic things. If it happens this way, we are there. But what if it doesn't happen? We have to make it happen. We teachers have to make it happen, because any policy is all about what the teachers are in the classrooms. So we have to make it happen, because 23% of the jobs will not exist in another 10-15 years. There will be a lot of importance that the jobs like data analysis will gain, or statistics or artificial intelligence. So are we preparing our children for that? Are we preparing our children to face this, the work-life balance, to be happy doing what they are doing? So that, therefore, introducing vocational education and skill building right from 6th standard is another step that the government has taken, and I feel that's really going to help our workforce, which is going to be the workforce in 2040. So therefore, what I would say is connecting the dots is the first highlight of NEP 2020, not learning in isolation, because learning cannot happen in isolation. It has to be a continuous process. So from your pre-primary to your post-graduation to further. Now I'm coming to professional development of teachers. So teacher has to be a learner first, a continuous learner for the learners to be learners, lifelong learners. So therefore that provision also has been made. So kind of it has connected the dots, and it is up to us teachers to make sure that we implement it well, and we make sure that there is amalgamation of this policy, implementation, strategy, and the way we are going to carry it out in our classrooms.
Thank you, Dr. Phadke. I think you endorse the NEP as much as the Prime Minister does. Believe in that. And yes, the crux of the matter is that till you implement it, it will just remain a policy, and policies have always looked beautiful. Moving on to Ms. Shunglu, we have been talking about learning outside the school. Revathi ma'am did that. But for a moment, I want to just go back to the school. We are a young country with tremendous untapped potential. But it is also true that a large section of our youth is still not absorbed into the workforce. The unemployment figures have been alarmingly high. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you, what are those must-have skills that our learners need so that they can thrive in the changing job market? Also, if you could talk about the steps we can take within the school to equip our learners with those must-have skills.
Thank you, Seema. Namaskar. I think a lot is, I'm the fourth speaker, and I think we've touched upon a lot of skills that are relevant in the course of our conversation, whether it was 21st century skills or it was working in collaboration. I'm going to take a stance which hasn't been touched upon. I won't touch upon all of them. One is to look at the topic itself, the broader topic about digital India. So when, as he said, there's an assumption. So digital India is, we are looking at a lot of inequity in access and infrastructure, right? And we're also talking about school. Now, a school, learning in school, a school is a community of learner. School does not work in isolation, right? It works at the interface with the family, with the community, so we have to see, we don't know the jobs that will come in the next 10 years, 50, but we know what we have. We have a community, and what we learn in that community is important. So the point that I'm trying to say is that one of the most important things why children and when young people go out, like we have in Bengal a lot of engineers who never got employed. Let's look at specifics. One of them is personal skills. Soft skills, personality development, right? A pleasing personality, ability to have an articulate conversation, convince somebody, both in the mother tongue and in the father tongue. I always call English the father tongue, because the reality is that a lot of people don't get employed because they're not able to convince people across the board that they have the quality that they may have. They have the credentials, they may have a degree, but they're not able to voice it in an articulate manner. And at least in Bengal, where I come from, this has been a problem. So I think that's one of the first areas we should look at, and is how to develop language skills, whether in the mother tongue or in the language that is needed, state-wise and across the country. So what can we do about that? I think we have great language programs, we have conversations about increasing reading storybooks, because there's a move from reading to other activities which are obviously more engaging for young children. Besides that, the second thing that I feel is very, very important is working in groups. Learning to be a part of a team. Letting other people take leadership, right? So the one thing that cannot happen outside school normally, because we have either a single child at home or 2 children at home, is working in larger teams. Most of the work that is happening today, especially management work, outsourced work, is working in teams across. So collaborative work, especially during COVID, even staying at home, we managed to achieve it. We worked with breakout rooms. But even once they come back to school, we have projects that are done as groups, right? The teacher has to be trained how to evaluate that group. Each one takes a role that they are best suited for. One could be a moderator, one is a researcher, or they could work in pairs. Now, this is the second thing. I feel collaboration is extremely important, and not only collaboration within school, but collaboration outside school. So more and more we have industry, we have to allow them to come in without feeling threatened to support us. We have hospitals in Calcutta which have the psychology wing working with our students. We have internships where students are working, they're observing, they're learning certain characteristics, and that is then showcased in school. We also have tinkering labs across schools, across different dimensions, whether the tier 1 or tier 2 cities, and these children are now innovating, they're learning the basic skills needed, whether it's coding or it's learning a Scratch program right from junior school, but they're learning about artificial intelligence, they're learning about Internet of Things, and these they are using to solve the problems. So schools can expose you to a variety of information, skills, knowledge, but if you want to proceed higher, You want to go deep, and that happened even 40 or 50 years ago. We got our language skills in school, we learned the 4 Rs, we learned personality development, but if we wanted to learn typing 50 years ago, we went to a typing school. I mean, it's unheard of. Now everybody knows typing because you can type on your phone, right? If you wanted to learn swimming, you went to a swimming. So it's all right to coexist. My message is it's okay to have schools that will have specific teachers trained in industry necessary skills. So industry specific skills. So if you need children to learn accountancy, then you will have somebody to train them for accountancy. Whether it is for coding, you'll be trained for that. So I think we need to worry about, firstly, personality development, a happy and humane child, a child who cares about others, right? Who can work as a group and who's not threatened when they find others going forward. They can take failure and use that to negotiate and move ahead, right? To learn from that. The 21st century skills are definitely the key to the future. They're the key to the future. They may not be the entire solution to the future. Whether it's critical thinking or problem solving, how do we bring that into our schools? The easiest way is by involving them in programs, in arranging events, in planning their own, making choices, as has already been mentioned. So many of the things I would say may be repeated, but finally I think the most important thing, which I truly believe since I come from a spiritual foundation, is that technology has made the world a global village. They say technology, it's so easy, everybody's traveling, we are constantly connected. But spirituality, the spirit, the human spirit, which is so resilient, makes you a family. So that skill, that aspect of learning must be woven into every school, where humanity comes before everything else. Being humane, helping somebody, mentoring another child, making schools completely inclusive, working in teams. I feel if we prepare this ground, our children will be successful in the. They have to be ready to learn. They have to have curiosity. We need to just stimulate them. We don't need to give everything. Why do we want to give so much? Expose them, give them opportunities, create these pathways of success in our schools. And every child must be good at something. We've spoken about how each child is. So whether it's music or sports, we need to get away from that old paradigm. I know most of us say we don't, but we need to respect the sports person as much as the person who tops in our school. We need to respect people who are working with the NGOs. We have children who are right now in Khatshila, learning how to, do a little bit of farming. It may be superficial right now. For 1 week, how much farming will you learn? Still, the exposure is there. They're teaching them, teaching other children. We run a free school. So all these are measures that most schools are doing today. To be compassionate, we've got to look at the country. We've got to look at what we've done to our society. It's not just about getting jobs. What about creating jobs, right? Absolutely. So that's where I will let. Thank you.
We have been shown the green flag, and I'll now sprint through the next round of questions with 1.5 minutes maybe, quickly. So first question, next question to you, Dr. Ms. Revathi Srinivasan, that you are the recipient of the world's best ICT award. And so, this question to you, Education 4.0 is a technologically fueled paradigm that aspires to radically alter the learning infrastructure so as to meet the needs of the future. So my question has 2 parts. Do you think our schools, the way they stand today, yours and mine, have the required infrastructure, resources, or even awareness to take this futuristic model to the lowest common denominator? And second part of the question, what are the challenges that we can anticipate if we have to bring this shift in the learning infrastructure?
Okay, since I have 1.5 minutes, so I'm just going to go directly. The first thing is that if you see the schools as a whole, not everyone is well equipped. One is devices, the second is the connectivity itself. So I'm going to give you an example of how we can help. One is CSR projects that can help schools in the rural setups that can, so that you can elevate them. Sharing of devices and ways by which the school can come across offering scholarships or ways of helping out. But I will give you an example of my own school in Chhindwara, a very small village in Chhindwara, where not even 10% of the children had mobile phones, smartphones with them during the pandemic. And those were owned by the parents. They would come back only in the evening. So how would the children study for 2 years? So we thought of a very simple way of working. If children can't come to schools, let's take the schools to the children. So what we did was we took small rooms, halls in villages where the children resided. My teachers belonging to that particular village went to that classroom and taught children there. No child missed school. So when we tried to do that, all that we could do, as I mentioned to you, that the main school of mine which I head already has a completely tech-equipped lab. We use the technology across there so that the teacher over there could relate and operate those systems in that hall that we had taken on hire. We call this the Mohalla schools. And instead of the children coming to school for 2 years, we had school in their villages. All that they had to do was to step out of their homes and come. What was fantastic was that the teachers rose to the occasion and were able to handle the technology that came because we did the thing for training for them, and they sort of conducted classes. So we will have to think about diverse ways of reaching across to children in case learning doesn't happen the way we had originally planned. 2 is that what is it that we need? For this kind of a paradigm shift, we need a completely different mindset. A mindset and mind that opens up to the new world and the new way of thinking. And for that, we need to keep educating people who are our stakeholders, teachers. All the time we need to talk to them, upgrading their skills, training them, children, so that they also are absolutely in tune with us. And all of you will agree how many of our teachers got help from their own students while they were taking their first classes. So many of them came forward telling, ma'am, don't do this, operate this, switch on this. Or if I could not share a slide and a teacher suffered from, that kind of a difficulty, they would say, just give us a presentation, we will share the screen. How many of our children did that? So children also rise and they also become co-learners. Teachers also become co-learners. So the first thing is change of mindset. 2 is upgradation of resources in our classrooms, for which the government needs to allot more funds across to all the government schools. There are very good organizations reaching across to rural schools and underprivileged children, trying to help them upgrade themselves, which is a very good sign, and we need to encourage more of that. Above all, we need platforms such as these, where we have a community of learners coming together, and that could be even parents, because education of all is very, very important, and I think that's the only way we can do it. This is the time that we have minds like an open parachute, so that it opens up at the right time when we have a problem. We have to imagine a school in the clouds. We have to imagine a school in our classrooms or inside a physical space as well. And there could be restrictions of all kinds. There would be challenges of all kinds. We have to be like the coffee beans, spreading the aroma of education and good education all around us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And even a shorter time left for you now. So let's start saving time for the next speaker if you want to complete these rounds. So, Dr. Bhavanishankar, we've been talking about preparing our schools for the future. What would be those prominent shifts, those exact steps that you think can propel us to become schools of the future?
I think we already have an answer. So let us rewind and go back about 20 years. Are we the future schools of yesteryears? If the answer is yes, we are all on the right track already. So I'm just going to leave you with some quick questions. So are we creating the right kind of learning spaces, whether they are physical or they are blended or virtual? Are we making these spaces relevant to the learners? Are we embracing the changes that are happening around us and learning from the changes? And most importantly, are we offloading the baggages that we have taken with us for long? If the answer is yes, we are future ready. The long and short of it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Dr. Phadke, very, very quickly, we want to talk about parents. So what are those ways in which parents can help facilitate or regulate learning outside school? Very briefly.
Yes, I'll finish in half a minute, don't worry. Because the very fact that we are thinking about this, that where can parents facilitate, means already we have formed two compartments. That some learning is happening in school and can it also happen at home?
It is.
Let's not do that. Okay. So let the learning continue even if the child finishes 6 hours of school and comes home. So learning can happen in the bus, learning can happen at home. I being from chemistry background, I'll say separation techniques, all boards have it. Whether it's international or Indian boards, all boards have it, SSC, ICSC, CBSC. Can that not be done at home? Are we teaching a person to how to fish, how to catch a fish, or are we giving fish ready-made? Even as a teacher, I'm a teacher, still I'm saying this. We are giving them notes, we are giving them video lessons, we are giving them everything ready-made. What they should do is learn and just reproduce in the exams. So we as teachers are also doing it. We are not teaching them how to fish. Same way the parents are also doing it. Everything ready-made, everything ready-made. As a teacher, can I have guts to tell the parents that I will not post anything. I am confident about what I am doing in the class and my children will show it to you in near this thing.
Absolutely.
As long as I am confident about that, I think we need not have these boundaries. Basic etiquettes, traffic rules, body language, communication, all this can continue in even at home. And then, you know, the boundaries between home and school, they will vanish. And the true definition of education, which says psychological, emotional, scholastic development of a person through a more knowledgeable person to this, so that more knowledgeable person can be parent also. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Phadke. And a very straight question to you, Ms. Shunglu, is that what is your opinion, although I know your opinion, about supplementing the school's efforts by partnering with private, non-formal players such as corporates who are providing internships or skill building courses, or technology companies who are providing, or massive, or MOOC providers. What about schools supplementing the schools, their efforts by partnering with these companies? What do you think about that?
I've already told you, I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea and we are doing it all the time in most of our schools, whether it's with hospitals or it is with the Niti Aayog or it is with our trust. We have people from different backgrounds coming into school to engage with children, speak to them, especially summertime internships, also bringing in specialists to school. To have a robust career guidance program from a young age where you can tie the aptitude of the child so that the child selects the stream and the subjects he enjoys with his aptitude early. I think all this will help us and there is no question of not saying no to this. It's definitely a yes, yes. We just have to moderate and see where do our children come from, what are their backgrounds, what do you need. You have to be selective. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And I think we have only 2 minutes to request for one audience question. The other alternative is we can close and have the questions face to face during lunch. So shall I take that liberty as moderator and not ask the audience any questions, or one question? Anybody has a question? Right. So let's close. That's all the time we have for now. And before the red flag comes, I need to conclude this it was a very stimulating and encouraging discussion, I would say. And we have people from, I think diversity was key, people from diverse geographies, diverse contexts. Of course, the viewpoints were diverse, but there were a lot of things that we agreed upon. And one of them was, so like Dr. Phadke and Ms. Revathi both said that, okay, learning, give children choices, it will automatically make learning joyful. Learning is happening at home as well as at school, and they're learning all the time. When we talk about, there was one unanimity that came across despite the diversity, which was that schools will not become redundant. I think Dr. Bhavanishankar very emphatically said that schools have become even more relevant now. And the only way they can become irrelevant is if all his assumptions are met, which is quite a long shot at the moment. One anecdote that I'm quickly going to share with you is I had this guest in my office the other day, and he's from a very credible organization that helps CBSE create these higher order questions. And he had a very candid comment when I just asked him this question, will schools become redundant? And he said, ma'am, children will always come to school if parents have to go to work. And I thought, how smart. And it reminded me of this WhatsApp that was doing the rounds when schools had to reopen, where there was this mother and child waiting for the school bus to come, and the visual was the school bus turns the corner, and the child tells the mother, Mama, this is called a school bus. Why are you calling it the answer to my prayers? So maybe you're right, the schools are more relevant than ever before, and I think after the COVID, parents started valuing schools and teachers a lot more. But jokes apart, there are certain skills that we can only learn in school, and Ms. Shunglu brought that out also. The socio-emotional skills, the interpersonal skills, including empathy, cooperation, negotiation, leadership, social awareness, that sense of community that you spoke about. And we realized this during the COVID, and I remember the leadership aspect of it, where the children of class 12th, because they did not really come to school except for giving exams, said that, ma'am, our regret is that we will never become seniors. We didn't get a chance to become seniors. And it means a lot of things. And those are skills that can be inculcated in school, nowhere else. And schools also foster other soft skills. You spoke about a lot of soft skills, 21st century skills Ms. Shunglu spoke about, so I will not go into them. So besides academic skills, there's a whole lot of skills that are developed. What are those some of the critical steps that we need to take? I think Ms. Revathi brought out that shift to personalized learning, shift to self-learning. So there are some, there are 8 critical characteristics. So one is that, and there are 8 characteristics in learning content and experiences that have been identified to define this high-quality learning in the 4th Industrial Revolution as part of the Education 4.0, and the same have also been recommended by the NEP 2020. So the global citizenship skills is one, technology skills is another. You all spoke about interpersonal skills, personalized and self-paced learning skills, abilities, accessible and inclusive learning, problem-based and collaborative learning is something that was also spoken about, and lifelong and student-driven learning. So the last question, is Digital India learning outside of schools? I think again there was unanimity that in different ways, yes, they need to learn outside of schools. And there were diverse opinions on what is outside of schools, but yes, they need to. And just before coming here, last 2 days, I actually went around the school to different classes and asked my children, what is it that they have learned outside of school in the last summer vacations and over the last 1 or 2 years. And I want to share a couple of stories with them. That is where a colloquy is different from a panel discussion, where I can also share, the moderator can share their stories. So in the last 1 year, I have 19 budding writers who are now published authors. They learned at the Scholastic Writers Academy, an online mentorship program where they were exposed to authors and literary experts who honed their skills on a one-on-one mentoring. And I think Ms. Shunglu talked about the psychology students of her school. Mine also go to Fortis Hospital and for internship in class 12th and even in class 9th and even in 11th. And there they were, I asked the children, so they said we shadowed the therapist and we gained a lot of practical knowledge. What? I said, okay, tell me what? Explain this knowledge to me. They said, we learned new therapy models. And then this one girl told me, we learned how to, when the patient is speaking, we learned how to pick up verbal cues. We learned how to pick up non-verbal cues. And we also learned the ethics of the field. And then, of course, MOOCs from Harvard, Varsity, Udemy, edX, so many online portals. And the children have done MOOCs on AI, robotics, web development, data science, video editing, leadership. There was one child who said on how to prioritize entrepreneurship development. And why did they go to these? Again, that advantage of anywhere learning, anytime learning, that personalized learning that is self-paced is the reason why children go and learn outside school. Just quickly to share with you, the Ernst & Young has also brought out an outreach STEM program which began in March of this year. And they have done it for 2,000 girl children in 3 cities only, Bangalore, Hyderabad and Delhi. So where 100 children, girl students from each school have been taken classes 7 to 11. And they are building learning for these children around STEM and SDG goals. So where the children have to identify a problem that affects them, develop a solution for that problem, but at the same time to be mindful of the SDG goals. And so far, day before, I actually went to the lab. They were all showcasing because tomorrow, 9th, they are showcasing their projects for a final selection. So day before, 17 projects had been showcased, and where the children showed me how they learned to use the MIT App Inventor. Only one teacher in the school knows it. But the children learned on their own through that. The entire program is an online kind of a program where they learned through the STEM EY app. So one of the researches that has come is happy periods. This girl has made these 2 girls have made an app that has conversations with girls about menstruation, answering all their questions that they might have in 20 vernacular languages, and soon it's going to be on Google Play App Store. Another group of children created something called, so Delhi has this, I suppose other places also, have this threat from stray dogs. And I think Chennai, we even read a horrendous story from I read in the papers. So these group of children have created a canine radar to mitigate the threat from stray dogs. They have created a tiny device with sensors that can be placed anywhere, on the cap, on a belt, on your shoes, anywhere. And if it senses a dog, it will produce an infrasonic sound that irritates all canines, and the dogs will automatically move away from them. This infrasonic sound is similar to something that happens when an earthquake is about to come. Animals sense it. So something similar to that. There's another app, Friend a Book, where you can buy, sell your books at 75% discount, or you can lend books online. And I have promised the children that I'm going to use this app in the new session for the seniors to sell their books to the juniors at 75% discount. I thought it is a huge saving. So there are so many tiny, I say the universe is made up of tiny atoms, but my school is made up of tiny stories, and all of us who love our schools think similarly, I'm sure. And they can just go on. But the most popular learning that happens outside of schools from the children that I gathered was through YouTube channels. 8th standard. So everything from learning dance, learning guitar, learning the keyboard, learning chemical equations, learning trigonometry, to robotics, to financial literacy. But one anecdote that I want to share with you about the YouTube videos is something a class 9 child showed me. So the child said that, ma'am, in the NCERT book, yeah, half a minute more. Thanks. So this child showed me an NCERT book and said, ma'am, so there's a play in the NCERT book, the last topic in class 9, which is If I Were You. And the child showed me on YouTube, ma'am, there is an animated video of this play on YouTube. And the child showed it to me. It is a 3-minute video. So out of curiosity, I just went and looked at the comments section. What are the comments that children are writing? So one of the comment was, this video is short and fantastic, not like teachers' long teaching. Another child wrote, my ma'am takes 2 weeks for completion of this chapter, but here only 3 minutes. Super. It's a very telling, I thought that was very telling comments, and now I look at more comments under YouTube videos. You can do the same. You will know what is Digital India thinking about. So yes, children are certainly learning beyond schools, and I think all of us have said that they're learning beyond schools, and we must accept it, even welcome it, and supplement what we do wherever we can till we are ready to provide the infrastructure. Like Revathi ma'am said, we are still not absolutely ready. It can no longer be BAU in today's language. I mean, it can no longer be business as usual for us school leaders. So let's gear up to bring the schools of the future to reality. And a very warm thank you to all our panelists. You made it a very rich session. And thank you